Hi, my name is Megan Greeson. I'm with the Clinical Community and Community Programs here at DePaul. My research mostly focuses on the response to violence against women, and by that I particularly focus on sexual violence and also do some work with interpersonal intimate partner violence. My research focuses in two lines, so I often do studies working with rape victims or domestic violence victims to better understand their needs and wishes and how communities can effectively respond to them. And that's an opportunity for giving those survivors voice and influence over how they should be responded to. The second type of studies I often work on are around how to improve how different organizations or community systems respond to sexual violence and domestic violence. So in the past, I've worked with the legal system, I've worked with the medical system, I've also done work with sexual assault response teams that bring together those diverse stakeholder groups to better understand systems level interventions and organizational interventions to improve how they work together to effectively respond to victims. So that's a broad overview of the types of research I'm often engaged in. I also teach in both the undergraduate and graduate levels. At the graduate level, I do a lot of the core courses and community. Right now I'm teaching community consultation and program evaluation. In terms of my action interests, I am interested in, like I said, working to improve how we respond to domestic violence and sexual violence. So I usually engage in that with the community and working to understand what are their most pressing information needs, working to address those, and then working together with them to bring that information to bear on how different resources are supported and how we can make improvements to policies and programs both at the organizational and national levels. As a community psychologist, one of the most important values to me is involving the community in the research process and truly giving the community input into anything that I do. So it's very important to me that I collaborate with different community organizations and community populations in my work to make sure that the research I'm doing is going to be both relevant to their work and applicable to making improvements in the future. A second very important value is the issue of diversity and working with victims of oppression and marginalized populations. So in my own work, I do that by working with rape victims and domestic violence victims or survivors. And working with survivors, another important value is empowerment. So I really try to think about ways that we can be empowering survivors to have more voice and influence. So we ask them specifically for direct ways to give opinions about how we could be making tangible improvements that will have a positive impact on their lives. So as an assistant professor, one of my long-term goals is to achieve tenure here at DePaul University. So that's of course important. But more specifically, I strive to be a committed and good teacher, helping particularly graduate students grow in community psychology and develop needed skills and capacities and help them get real-world opportunities while they're doing so. So I try and apply that in both my mentoring and my teaching. And then in my research, one of my short and long-term goals is to continue working with communities to really improve how we're responding to domestic and sexual violence. One of the things that I want to do in the future is to become even more collaborative and even more participatory in my work. And by that I mean giving organizations and the populations I'm working with even more opportunity to have influence over research and interventions that can make a difference in improving the lives of different populations. For my teaching assistants and graduate assistants, I really look for a few key things, one of which is really being proactive and taking initiative in the project and trying to grow in the job. I think that's very important. Another one is not being afraid to ask questions. I really strive for open communication in my relationships with graduate students. I think it's better for me, it's better for the student, and it's better for the project. So I really hope that people will be asking lots of questions and so that we can work together to achieve our goals. And then another important requirement is working well with other members of the team. Oftentimes I might have multiple TAs or multiple GAs on a research project, so establishing collaborative and beneficial relationships with the other peers is very important too. And then finally, I think that it's important that TAs and GAs also look out for opportunities to learn from these projects and these positions. So it's not just about getting the work done, although that's important too, but that they're looking for opportunities to develop new skills and are voicing those ideas to me so that we can work together to make that happen. So some of the successful people I've worked with in a supervisory role A common opportunity that students have on my work, especially the research component, is the opportunity to publish with me as a co-author, or to present with me as a co-author at regional or national conferences. So that's a common indicator of success. A lot of my undergrads have had the opportunity to move forward and work with graduate school, and graduate students have gotten valuable experience in a variety of different skills in working with me. So don't hesitate to involve graduate students in any aspects of the research process. So they might be involved in helping develop relationships with the community, they might do data collection, they can do analyses, they can be part of presenting to both the community and, again, the academic world. So they develop really key skills there. So first of all, I think it's important that the mentoring relationship is tailored to individual students' needs. So while I always offer students the opportunity to meet with me on a regular basis, I'm always going to be giving students feedback and helping them work through key departmental goals and key professional goals. What that particular process looks like can vary from student to student. I'd say a typical one would involve regular meetings with me, working together on, like I said, the graduate school hoops, so things like theses and comps and dissertation. I try and help students be prepared for those steps as possible, but in addition to that, I also see my role as a broader professional mentor, so helping them connect with professional networks, find new opportunities to grow and develop relationships with other faculty members, and develop key skills and resume lines so that they'll be marketable for the jobs they want when they move forward. I think there's a lot of different ways that people can become successful as a result of these kinds of opportunities to work with faculty. So a common opportunity in my work is the opportunity to present at conferences or publish with me. So that's a common opportunity that's important, particularly for students that are interested in going into academia. Whether students are interested in more applied or routes, such as going to work for the government or going to work for an evaluation firm, or they're interested in more academic jobs like teaching or doing research in a university, there's a lot of valuable skills that I think successful people are building. So they range from things like how to collaborate with community partners to how to engage in different steps of the research process. And I also work with them to develop skills that they think are important for their own professional trajectory, whether that be with opportunities with me or helping them to identify opportunities in the broader field of community psychology or with other DePaul faculty so that they can really be building the skills that are most important for their future career aspirations. I think the process varies depending on whether you're working on your thesis or your dissertation with me. But as your chair, regardless, I'm there to support and help coach you along the way. For both my thesis and dissertation students, I offer them the opportunity to meet with me regularly if they want it. And on either type of project, we start off by negotiating together an appropriate project. So in terms of what type of issue you want to be investigating, what your methods might look like, what population you're thinking about studying, and together we think about what are the implications for the quality of your product at the end of the day. So especially if you're thinking about doing an academic or research-based career, what do you need that thesis or dissertation to look like? And on top of that, is this project really going to be scientifically valid? And also, is it going to be feasible and reasonable for you to complete in an appropriate timeline? In terms of timeline, I hope that students will keep making consistent progress throughout their graduate school. That's the most important thing, is keeping that consistent progress going, and that's what really helps students graduate in the timeline that they want to graduate in. In terms of the differences between the two, I often give dissertation students a bit more independence. So the dissertation is intended to show more of your independence as a scholar. So you will have more of an independent role in really formulating your questions and formulating your argument for why you want to research those particular questions, but I'll still be, of course, there for a support along the way. And then in both projects, I'm there as a support as you're actually conducting the research. So if you need to help with collecting data or dealing with a methodological issue, I'm there as your first resource in that area as well. And then finally, we'll also work together on the writing of the actual document itself. So whether that's the proposal or the final thesis or dissertation, it's my role as chair to help you write that in a way that's compelling and meets scientific expectations and is going to be received positively by your committee. I think one of the most important things is that the research lab is ultimately fairly informal, but characterized by a friendly, collaborative nature. So between me and the students and between the students themselves, really want to have a collaborative environment so that people feel open to asking questions and for asking for new opportunities to learn and grow in the research. We also have regular team meetings on a weekly basis to touch in with each other, deal with project issues, and also learn from the different parts of the project. So often on my work, we'll have one umbrella project or multiple projects going, and different people might be working on different pieces with that, but I try and integrate some so that at those team meetings, you can also be seeing what other people are up to and learn from that experience as well. So in addition, I work with both graduate students and undergraduate students. So with my graduate students, they're often doing higher order tasks that could include helping me collaborate with the community, data collection, analyses, and write-up. With the undergraduate students, they might start off doing more basic tasks like lit reviewing or data entry, but as they move up, they'll be learning more about data collection if that's something that's interesting to them, and analyses as well. But oftentimes the graduate students are also taking a more active role in helping supervise the undergraduate students and helping the undergraduate students to learn from the process as well. And that gives graduate students important experience in both supervising and mentoring. But like I said, try to keep it very friendly and collegial and open so that everybody's comfortable and everybody is feeling comfortable having open communication. Students in my lab work on a variety of research, so I used mixed methods, meaning I use both quantitative or numbers-based and qualitative or word-based methods. And it really depends on the particular study. Oftentimes within one particular study I might be using both methods. So graduate students can get opportunities to work on both as well as can undergrads. In terms of the specific parts of the research process, I often use interview methods and survey methods, particularly to collect data from rape victims or just domestic violence victims and from community professionals that are responsible for responding to those victims. So that's a common technique that students will learn about in my lab. Those surveys are usually very structured. The interviews might range from very standardized structured interviews to more open and qualitative unstructured interviews. I also work a lot with archival methods, so that might involve collecting records from different professional organizations that deal with victims, so the legal organizations, medical organizations, or collaborative groups that are working together to do interventions to improve the response to sexual assault or domestic violence. So both helping collect those archival methods and then code them to extract data from them is also a common technique that I use. I also involve graduate students in the various aspects of the research process, all the way from building relationships with community partners to analyses and dissemination.